Welcome back to another new episode of the Last Wave podcast. We dive into topics like ghosts, UFOs, cryptids, nerd stuff, and conspiracies. As always, thanks for listening. It means a whole lot. Check out our Facebook page if you haven't already. Same name and photo. A lot of cool stuff on there and a lot more planned. We also have the Twitter, patreon.com. We're kind of blowing up all over the place. One thing I do want to mention real quick is extralife.org. I'm going to try to post a link to our page pretty much everywhere. It's really linked to our sister channel, which is Last Wave Games, and it's a gaming YouTube channel. But extralife.org is a wonderful charity. They give money to children's hospitals. You get to pick which one you want to donate to. I have chosen Levine Children's. It is in North Carolina. So basically, you can host real life gaming events for charity. You can have them donate during a Twitch stream, YouTube videos, etc. So basically, Last Wave Games is an official Extra Life team. So I can kind of host events, do all kinds of stuff. I don't touch any of the money. It doesn't come to me at all. I'll post links to it. So if you can do something, great. If not, thanks for listening. Thanks for joining us. But it is a really, really good charity, and it's super easy. It takes maybe 2 minutes to donate. Again, I'll post the links throughout our social media and all that good stuff. But today, I've been sitting on this story for a while. This typed up article, typed up show notes, but I wasn't sure I was going to do it. But I've been encouraged to kind of make the channel a little more personal. So this is actually my haunted house story of a home that my family and I lived in years ago, probably at least a decade now, but it's in western North Carolina. I won't say what city and area and stuff. That's probably gonna be easy to figure out as the story goes. But we don't need anybody going up there searching and that kind of stuff and bothering people. So this is a mostly untold story. Not many people have actually heard this story, but I figure it should be shared. Through the ad that I put out, looking to help others with paranormal issues, I've had plenty of people approach me with ghost stories, um, and that kind of stuff. So, and dealing with shadow people, which this is kind of intertwined with that a little bit, and definitely intertwined with ghosts. But so this whole thing starts again in Western North Carolina. Um, it was a house that my family were staying in. We were renting, and apparently, as we heard, that near our house or at the site where our house was, there was a fort once. And this fort was apparently where the Cherokee Trail of Tears began. Basically, the Trail of Tears is the systematic forced marching of Native Americans westward and then placing them into their reservations and things like that. So, this fort is where they were gathered up and held in what I would imagine is not the best conditions. They're basically rounded up, gathered up in these little areas and held. And the way the house sat, it's set up on a hill, and at slightly down the hill, it flattened out a good bit, and that is apparently where the campsite was. The fort on the hill, the campsite where these Native Americans were held was on the lower part. Um, so before that march actually began, that is where they were held. As you can imagine, again, the living conditions were not the greatest. A melting pot of sadness and anger and dread for what might be in the future. Um, our home, I lived with my family at that point, as it was again maybe 12 years ago. So as I said, it was on the upper area, basically right where the fort was. During our time there, things started to happen here and there, nothing major, and I was obviously about halfway through my love of paranormal in my life. Like I said, it's been about 15 to 20 years, so it's probably 10 years ago if I had to take a random guess. We've moved a lot, so again, it would be a random guess. But again, I wasn't really looking for ghosts. I did enjoy ghost shows, Discovery Channel, Travel Channel, all that good shenanigans, but I wasn't doing any of this. I wasn't doing active hunting and research. So I was not really prepared for what was happening or what was going to happen. At first, it was nothing major, rustling sounds. It's an older house, so in the mountains, so that's kind of expected. It had a large sunroom with a very defunct jacuzzi in it, sadly. The ceiling in this sunroom was around 20 feet high. Make no mistake, it was not as fancy as it sounded. Um, Now, the ceiling of this room had big wooden beams across it. And one thing I noticed first was weird shapes in the wood. It always seemed as though you could see handprints, footprints, other strange markings. They would just appear on these beams that were on the ceiling. And it could have been pareidolia, which is a thing where, like, you look at a cloud and you see a shape that you recognize. You see faces in rocks and things of that nature. That's what pareidolia is. So I don't, you know, exactly say that that was immediately paranormal, but it was kind of confusing. Definitely a little weird. However, a little more confusing and intense were some of the smells. Often we would get the smell of campfire smoke. It would waft through the house. Now we were in the mountains of North Carolina. There could have been a fire somewhere, but it was just really random and often, and it was in the house. Not necessarily, you step outside and you smell it. It wasn't always that there was a window open. And again, it was just a really random, direct smell. It wasn't something burning in the kitchen. It was campfire smoke, and you could definitely smell it inside the house. The other thing was a sound that got me. That was like a whistling sound, like wind mixed with a bird whistle. Like I could not place it at first. Well, we were visiting as a family. We were visiting one of the flea markets in the area, and there was a Native American shop where they sold, you know, tourist trap crap, little toys and things of that nature. And one thing they had was a wooden whistle carved to mimic ones that they would have had in the time of the fort, Native American actual toys and that kind of stuff. And you guessed it, it was the same exact sound, like to the T, same tone, same wind-like chime to it. So, again, not necessarily paranormal. Can't state that it for 100% sure was, but those were just kind of the tamer things that happened. The following events were much more intense. First, I will start with the thing that you always see in ghost hunting TV shows, but if you've never seen it, then you really can't speak on it. These guys walking around in pitch black and somehow go, they ask, "Did you see that?" They say they see movement in the darkness. Now, until this moment, I figured that was just dumb. It's dark. How can you see something dark moving while it's also pitch black? Well, one night in my room, which was the finished basement of the house, which was attached to that sunroom, I was watching the TV, which sat in the far corner of the room, and behind the TV was just a black area. The lights were out, and due to it being nighttime, with the light of the TV creating a very visible barrier, I clearly saw a black mass start at the lower left side from behind the TV and stand up and move around the back of the TV to the opposite side. Now, I wasn't really scared of paranormal stuff. I never really have been. For some reason, movies will get me. Movies like It and stuff will scare me to death, but real life stuff, I'm just don't have any fear of it. I can't explain it. I don't know why, but that's just how it is. So when this happened, again, I wasn't scared. I jumped up and immediately asked who's there. Waited a moment, no response. Moved to the light quickly, I will say that, and flipped it on. And of course, there was nothing there, no vent, a few cords on the floor from the TV, but that's it. I know 100% what I saw, and you literally can see black shadows moving in darkness, and I will never question that again. The next situation definitely took my breath away. It was in a spare bedroom that we had upstairs on the main floor. Super small room. It had like a twin bed, a TV tray for a side table. Basically, it was a makeshift office where I had my laptop. The family had the PC. Hard to believe we had laptops then, honestly. I mean, it must have been just an antiquated, just massive piece, I'm sure. But anyway, I was on Skype, and this was when Skype was really popular, just come out one day with a friend, chit-chatting about who knows what at this point. But I heard the door open, which was behind me and to my right. I turned to the door, and it hadn't opened, hadn't moved. And even my friend noticed what was going on, and they asked me what had happened. I said, I don't know. I just heard the door. So that's really all there was to that. So fast forward about 1 week. My younger sister at the time was on the laptop in the room doing whatever. Again, I remember these events. I don't remember exactly the details of what everyone was doing. I go in probably to bother her and sit down on the corner of the little twin bed beside where she's at, and I absolutely freeze, like not even breathing for a second. The sound of me sitting on the bed was the exact same sound I heard just a few days earlier. So I can only assume from that something was either in the room or came into the room and sat down on the bed right beside where I was. So I looked over my shoulder, but if I would have looked, I looked over my shoulder to the door, but if I would have looked the other way, over my left shoulder, maybe I would have seen a divot on the corner of the bed or an apparition. I don't know. Either way, super, super creeped out by that. That was like my first, other than the shadow behind the TV, that was my first oh crap moment because you recognize it. You remember the sound because the door didn't move, but you remember the sound because you were there. You know it happened. You know you heard it, and then just to hear that exact same sound that was probably not even a foot from where you sat, it was really intense. Um, the last part was kind of what took me away from sharing this story, but I feel like with my work on the ad and shadow people and my research into that, I feel like it kind of needs to be shared. So here we go. So one of my family members came to me very distraught one evening, saying that there was a shadowy figure bothering them. And I didn't know anything about shadow people at this time. Again, had no idea. I enjoyed shows like Supernatural, uh, Ghost Hunters, and like I said, Discovery Channel and that kind of stuff. No way, shape, or form was I as detailed a researcher as I am now. But basically, they came to me saying that this shadowy figure was bothering them, told them mean things, and told them to hurt other people. Never before, just in this house. I told that person that I was not scared and it couldn't get to you. The response that I got was the entity said that I should be scared. Well, that just honestly served to piss me off. So I got a description of the entity as a shadowy man with a hat. I entered the person's room with the door closed behind me and set to telling the entity the normal banishing stuff, commanding it holy names that it leave. I hung up a few crosses, and again, I've never dealt with anything like this. Anything I would know from that would have just been from TV shows and things that I saw, a few books I read, you know, researching Ed and Lorraine Warren, that kind of stuff. I hung up a few crosses, and it was apparently never heard from again. Thankfully, we didn't stay much longer for other reasons. We moved. We moved a lot again, I will say. But that was my first real big run in with the paranormal. And if anyone knows anything about shadow people, and again, I found this out years earlier and through my recent research, if you've heard any of my stuff on shadow people or any of the more mainstream knowledge as it is more mainstream now, the Hat Man is one form of them. Now, the description I got as a shadowy figure with a hat, a wide brim hat, I expected at first that it could be, an angry spirit from one of the captains or soldiers that used to be in the fort. I was not expecting to face down one of the most angry type kind of beings that you can actually face. So again, that kind of pushed me into researching the shadow people, researching this stuff more seriously. So again, I guess it kind of really got me to where I am now. But those were the main things that happened in that house. Again, not really sure I wanted to share this, but I don't think any of my family are going to listen to this episode. So hope everyone enjoyed it. All that was real. None of that was made up. That was 100% on. 100% me. Like I said, I want to make the channel a little bit more personal. And again, that was a really big turning point in my paranormal researching career. I mean that mixed with a few other events that maybe we'll go over in some future episodes really pushed me over the edge of just reading a few books and just watching some shows into researching everything that I could get my hands on. So again, glad everybody could listen. Check out our links to extralife.org if you can. Again, it's a really, really great charity. Throw a like on the video. Thank you for listening. Hope everyone is enjoying the channel, and we will catch you on the next video.